I am joined today by Mounir Nakhla, the founder and CEO of MNT-Halan.
In the world of technology, this has changed. Everyone's bank will be in their pocket. I had established other companies and we put them all together in 2021. We doubled down on financial services.
What decisions did you make to make your platform so widespread?
And we have physical presence in thousands of locations across the country. There will be winners, there will be losers, and I think the winners will be the ones who move fast with a great service to the customer and giving them multiple services.
Welcome to Access Tomorrow, brought to you by Visa. Today, we are going to explore the power of fintechs in actually transforming financial inclusion, specifically in underserved markets. And for this, I am joined today by Mounir Nakhla. Mounir is the founder and CEO of MNT-Halan, a leading fintech platform in Egypt and in the region that is transforming the lives of underbanked and unbanked communities all across the region. Thanks to Mounir's vision, MNT-Halan has really redefined the way fintechs are looking at how we serve those communities. So we'll talk with Mounir about the beginning of MNT-Halan, what's happening today, and of course, what's coming up for Halan in the region. Mounir, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's great to have you.
Very happy to be here.
So let's start from the beginning and take a trip down memory lane. I think from what I remember is MNT-Halan started actually as a ride-hailing company and then today is a fintech powerhouse. What made you do that shift and get into financial services?
So that's the story of Halan. So before Halan, I was in the, very, if you want to go back memory lane, down memory lane, in 1999, I was doing my undergrad dissertation, and I did it on the impact of microfinance. And I toured the country, the governorates, and I did an impact study on access to finance and the importance of access to finance. In 2010, I established a vehicle financing company, 2- and 3-wheeler financing company. 2014, a microfinance company, so it was a lending business, grew very fast. And in 2017, we established Halan, a technology company that was doing ride-hailing, delivery, super app, very much inspired by Gojek in Indonesia. It was right after a trip to Indonesia that I established Halan. And by 2019, we were losing too much money. So we were burning $1 million a month, 3 million rides. And at that time, I said, the unit economics don't make sense. Let's focus more on financial services, especially that I had established other companies, and we put them all together in 2021, developed our core banking software, payment platform, consumer-facing app, and a lot of the management tools, and we doubled down on financial services.
What a journey. It's interesting. I didn't know about all of this past, but you actually started in finance, moved to ride-hailing, and then made it like this super financial application. And I know that you have a big focus on financial inclusion. And when we talk about financial inclusion, I mean, for me, it's pretty simple, right? It's really about helping people that are out there. And it's really about how do you bring them into the economy, how do you help them manage their money, and eventually maybe build a better future for themselves and their families. We know in Egypt, maybe a bit less than a third of the population actually holds a bank account. So the potential for financial inclusion is quite big. But it's not easy to serve these communities. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges you faced in serving those communities of unbanked or underbanked people?
I can tell you more about the opportunity than the challenges. So
Okay.
It was a fun journey. The reason is there is so much demand, and with very little services you provide, there's a lot of appreciation for the services you provide. So a lot of these, we started off after we focused on vehicle financing or light vehicle financing, we focused more on small and micro business financing. And these people have very, very little access, or had at the time very, very little access to capital to grow their businesses. And when we provided that, the demand was unbelievable. Of course, the digital infrastructure in Egypt does not enable 100% a digital experience. And the reason is we still can't have digital signature.
Yeah.
We still need wet signature. And this type of thing, once there is a digital identity for the individual, then distribution will increase exponentially.
And I want to maybe stress a little bit on this point, because you're making two very good points, which one is around some of the regulatory hurdles that you face, and obviously the infrastructure, the limited infrastructure that you have in places like Egypt. What were some of the key decisions or strategies you take as Halan to make you so successful despite the regulation, like you're saying, there's no digital signature, but also the limited infrastructure? I mean, what decisions did you make to make your platform so widespread?
And we have physical presence in thousands of locations across the country. So if we need a signature, ink on paper, we get it. And we use this to onboard more and more people. Data, for many of the financially underserved, view data as an expensive, it's an expensive thing. So the more you avail it at discounts and the more you promote it for the customers, it increases adoption. The other thing is multiple services. So the one thing we've learned is that the more services you give to a certain customer, the less likely he is to churn. And the more likely he is to use one service, two services, and more and more.
Yeah. I mean, we know you grew like 20 times since your inception, served more than 7 million customers, and you're talking about the more services that you give. So I hear you have something like 2.2 million active quarterly users on your platform. And to make those users active, it's all actually about the user experience, right? And I've heard you before emphasizing about being consumer-centric and having a consumer-centric approach. So I want you to tell me a little bit more. First is, any company locally or globally inspires you from a consumer-centric approach? I mean, we know, for example, some people tell you in design we're inspired by Apple, right? Any company that comes to your mind that inspires you from that perspective. But also, you talked about data. How do you gather and use the data and the feedback from your users to continue to refine the services that you offer them?
So yes, there are a few companies that inspire me around the world. One of them is Kaspi.
Yes.
And Kaspi in Kazakhstan have done a fantastic, phenomenal job. They're listed in the NASDAQ.
Yeah.
They have many, many services on the app, and they have 60-70% of the population of Kazakhstan on their application. So that's already a very, very big sign of success. Nubank in Brazil, that's a huge inspiration and success, and the way they used cards to grow the banking base of their customers. They also had a lot of money to invest, a lot more access to money as a company to invest and grow their businesses. If my memory serves me right, they've raised a few $1 billion to establish and grow their business before. So these are two companies that inspire me. And I think the more you profile your customers and the more actions you study from your customers, and we have currently a team that is that do nothing but customer experience, and they focus on the customer journeys, where they churn, where they buy. Is it a pricing thing? Is it a user thing? Is it a product thing? And they just keep on improving it.
Constantly.
It's a feedback loop.
Yeah.
And also now more and more the data feeds back into our credit decisions, which help us underwrite better, which help us perform better and have better economics.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of what you offer to your users is actually those microloans. Can you talk a little bit more about this data and this credit scoring that you do for actually, I mean, and how has it been performing?
So when we launched our instant approval model, it performed very badly.
Oh.
Very badly. And it took us months and months of refining and adding more data points. And ultimately, we started using social graphs to connect people and identifying how many people are good people in the contact list and how many bads and what impact does this have on credit. And more recently, it has improved dramatically. So I think we're down to low single digits, non-performing loans out of a digital underwriting model.
And how much did technology actually help in improving this?
It was only technology, 100%. If there was no technology, there would be no model.
So I think you've also, I mean, like you said, you've invested a lot in your technology, like your own core banking software. Are you thinking of becoming a full digital bank?
With any large lender, and we're becoming a significantly large lender, that is growing very, very fast. So there's a lot of demand for funds. And what tends to happen is, what is the source of funds? Mm-hmm. Currently, our source of funds are overdraft facilities from banks, and we nearly work with 90% of Egyptian banks. We offload our loan book, so we do securitizations and the like. But at some point, we need to start thinking, should we take deposits or not? What we started doing is selling money market funds. Yeah. And since we launched the service on the app, we give 19% daily interest in that money market fund. And I think we've served tens of thousands of people. Because we have such a big base on the application, whatever service you provide on it, it's easy to distribute and sell.
So we talked about Egypt. I think we've heard as well that you've expanded beyond Egypt, specifically in Pakistan and more recently in Turkey. How much of the strategies that you used in Egypt are you taking to these markets? And we know these markets are different. Similar but different in many ways. Or is it that you're starting from scratch? It's a completely new strategy. How are you looking at your regional expansion?
So what I would say is much, much, much more similar than different.
Okay.
So when you put like-minded people in the same room, they tend to speak the same language. If you put two artists in the same room, they would speak the same language. If you put two football players in the same room, no matter where they're playing football, even two sportsmen, just two athletes in the same room, they have a lot in common. And what I've realized is that overall in the world, in general, consumers and small business owners have a huge, huge need for access to financial services. The economics behind it, the way you distribute it, the way you serve the customer is more or less, there are lots of similarities between countries than differences. Turkey is a huge, not huge, but it is a significant investment that we did, whereas Pakistan is very, very small today, but can develop to become much bigger. Turkey today contributes about 35% of our overall business.
Oh.
The company, we have about more than 50% of market share in number of small businesses that we provide services to.
Okay. Wow, that's impressive. And I think you talked about when you put like-minded people in the same room, speaks to the importance of partnerships, right? And I think, could you talk a little bit more about how partnerships or some of the acquisitions you've made have helped MNT-Halan in their growth strategy?
So the benefit is usually two ways. So lending is in general, a very local business. It's quite pretentious to say, I come from Egypt, I'm going to go to country X and I'm going to lend there, because there's so many small details that I don't know here. So that's why we opted for an M&A strategy where we partner with existing players that have licenses, that already have sufficient scale, so it's not greenfield, and then we capitalize on everything we've done in Egypt. So in Egypt, we've built a very, very wide array of services that don't exist or are not implemented within the companies we acquired or partnered with. And none of them have developed a core banking software, a back-end technology like we have. A lot of the principles of risk management, credit underwriting, credit scoring models. A lot of this knowledge already exists there, but we benefit from what we have developed in-house in Egypt. We have learned a lot from the teams on the ground in Turkey and in Pakistan, and there are extremely, extremely intelligent, competent and qualified calibers that add tremendous value to our growth and development as well. So it's a two-way street. It's not just one way.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm pretty familiar with Pakistan, and I definitely see the kind of opportunities and potential that is in this market. Very similar to Egypt, like you're saying. I think the financial inclusion potential in Pakistan is tremendous. Thinking of small businesses, thinking of women, thinking of agri businesses as well. So very, very similar to what we see in Egypt. I want to shift gear and talk maybe a little bit about regulation. And I know how much regulation is a major factor for any fintech growth, right? It's always how do you bring this balance between being, I would say, navigating the regulatory landscape, but at the same time providing a user experience that is superior, that is seamless, that is frictionless. How do you balance pushing the boundaries and actually bringing so much more financial services to these users, and at the same time navigate that regulatory landscape that's changing all the time?
Yes. So basically, I think the key point here is can an individual or a business sign a contract digitally, get their disbursement digitally, pay digitally, and if something goes wrong during that process, can we go to a court and can they acknowledge this piece of paper or this digital signature as an authentic one? And I think there are some countries where a digital identity has been created.
Yes.
And this digital identity is linked to a mobile phone number. And basically, once the individual is digitally authenticated and they perform a transaction, and if there's a problem, even the courts can move digitally without an individual walking to a court, and action can be taken, like certain prohibitions of renewing official documents, traveling, etc. So it puts a bit of pressure for payments. In Egypt, we have done great progress, especially with the payments regulations, with the Fintech regulations by the FRA. So there's a lot of progress that took place, and I think we're going in the right direction. We still are not 100%. Every individual has a digital identity, but I think this is the North Star that we should be heading towards.
The digital identity is actually a very, very big topic in financial services. I think we've estimated that across Central Europe, Middle East, and Africa, there are 400 million people that do not have there is a need for 400 million digital IDs all across. And we definitely see governments trying to push towards this way. I think sometimes the private sector might be actually faster in making it happen.
The private sector cannot make it happen. So this is what I meant by infrastructure. We need a digital infrastructure in which we operate. So if there is a digital identity, then my UI, UX can have the individual, whether it take Face ID, OTP, whatever mode of authentication, and I know that any interaction is with this specific individual and identity. And if something goes wrong, everyone in the ecosystem can acknowledge that. So it's not something the private sector can do. It's something only governments can establish, and private sector to flourish and provide services and expand their services to their clientele.
And private sector, private sector providing more data as well to that digital identity. Like you today have a digital scoring for all of the individuals that are on your platform. So I think it's a complementary work that we see happening in some places. I want to move a little bit to the future, since we went to the past, looked at what's going on today. And I think, I'm very passionate about fintech myself. I've been following the fintech scene in Egypt for a while now. What we've seen is a lot of the Egyptian fintech, like yourself, also growing and going internationally and regionally, maybe with the same services. But when you think of the future, what do you see is the future or the new trends that are coming to the fintech space? And how are you thinking about them as Halan?
So the way we look at it is that the way I look at it from a very, very high helicopter view. Traditionally, there were banks with branches, people walking into them, taking a piece of paper, waiting in line, signing documents, and the relationship with their banker was very important. And a bank branch was quite intimidating to walk into the branch. It's quite intimidating. So a lot of people in villages are not very comfortable walking into branches of banks simply because of the intimidation.
Yeah.
In the world of technology, this has changed. So everyone's bank will be in their pocket. And here I'm talking if you want to save, if you want to invest, if you want to trade stocks, if you want to invest even in real estate, in money market funds, in you name it. You want to borrow, you want a card, you want to look at your account. So everything is going to become on your phone, in your pocket. And there will be a lot of competition with that regard in the pocket, right? So the company that is able to establish a relationship through the mobile phone where the individual or the business is constantly interacting with it on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, even better on a daily basis if there are services that can keep you coming to that and then the relationship becomes so well cemented that the banking happens through you.
Yeah.
What I've learned from my experience is a lot of the services we provide to customers are loss-making. If you say e-commerce, probably loss-making. We have a game that entertains people and people are competing against one another. I don't think we make any money out of our game, and so on and so forth. Even some of the products on the liability side could be not very profitable. However, they maintain a relationship with the customer. They maintain trust. They maintain familiarity. More and more with machine learning, large language models will be able to communicate with these individuals, businesses, advise them on what to do. Just tell them good morning. How are you doing? It's your birthday. It's your son's birthday. It's your wife. Do you want to do that with you? Do you want to bring her a present today? You don't have enough money. We're seeing your salary is coming in every month. You have to be careful. Do you want to save 20% of your salary every month so that in Christmas you have enough funds? And that relationship between the individual and the financial service provider is going to change dramatically. Now, there will be winners, there will be losers, and I think the winners will be the ones who move fast with a great service to the customer and giving them multiple services.
Yeah. We talk a lot about the impact of Gen AI will have on commerce. Some of the examples you just gave are things that I think are imminent, and we see probably today where you get a reminder, oh, it's your daughter's birthday, don't forget, last year you got her this, and this is the budget that you can have, and would you want a small advance to get this? I think that would be the ideal world of financial services. If
you can also advise your customer on where to invest. Do you want to invest in stocks or bonds or money market funds or real estate? Then you're even adding even more value to them.
Yes, and this is all about their financial well-being. So Mounir, you're someone who made such an impact in the fintech space. I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs look up to you. So 2 questions, actually. One is there a specific entrepreneur that was a role model for you, whether in this region or globally? And the second one is, we know that successful leaders surround themselves with the right people. Can you tell us a little bit more about how do you choose your team? Who are the people around you that actually push you to always do more?
The first person that comes to mind, obviously, is Ahmad Mohsen, who is the co-founder of Halan.
Okay.
And if it wasn't for Ahmad, a lot of the creativity and a lot of the innovation and the execution on it from a technology point of view would have never happened. So he's a huge, huge driver in that journey. And then the team at the company is very passionate. They all believe in the vision, and they're all in there. So I think this makes a big difference. I've surrounded myself with throughout my journey with a lot of friends, that acquaintances that then developed into dear friendships, that are all very clever in what they do. And I find no shame in asking for advice or discussing personal topics or even business topics with them. I remember one of my very, very dear friends, Muhammad Kamel, he went to Harvard Business School and he graduated from there. And in 2010, when I had just established the vehicle financing business, I was trying to get myself to do a predictive model for the business plan. It wasn't working out very well for me. And he introduced me to the guy who was the top of his class with him at HBS, who by coincidence wanted to learn Arabic. So I told him, okay, I'm going to put you in the company. You're going to work at Arabic and you're going to develop the model for me. And he developed a model that lasted for years with us and so on and so forth. So I think having very, very qualified people, very, very intelligent people around you makes a huge difference because it shapes your mind.
Yeah.
And I think from the other side, from the receiving end, I think one should always keep an open mind and not be too fixed in his ways.
Yeah.
Although one should not be too swayed too much with authorities that seem to think that they know better. I mean, I don't mean authority as public authority, but individuals who have a lot of authority. So in 2019, we were raising a $15 million round for Halan. And at the same time, where we had one of the large international VCs willing to sign a much bigger check than the $15 million, but they wanted me to double down on ride-hailing. And I'll never forget it. We were having breakfast in one of the 5-star hotels in Egypt. And I told the gentleman, I told him, I am aborting ride-hailing. I'm raising funds to pivot into fintech. And I remember what he told me. He told me, you take these $15 million, you put them into the ride-hailing business, you grow it as fast as possible, as quickly as possible, you raise more money, and you keep on doing that until it's a huge company. And I said, I'm not going to do that because it doesn't make economic sense. And I stuck to my guns.
Wow.
And I didn't take the money. I didn't raise the round. It was a very stressful period at the time until I got it all sorted out.
Yeah.
But I think funding dried up a few years later, maybe less than 2 years later, and I would have found myself burning $2-3 million a month and scrapping myself and killing myself to raise more funds. So I'm really glad I took the decision I made.
Sometimes it's okay to walk out from such opportunities, and here you are with Halan. I mean, the first unicorn in Egypt. So hats off to you on that decision. So we have a tradition in this podcast is we always ask our guests this pivot question, and maybe share with us a pivot moment, whether in your professional career or in your life, that got you where you are here and that our audience can learn from.
So the first pivotal moment that happened is I had signed SHA and an SPA to establish a company in a different field than Fintech in 2010, early 2008, right before the crash, with a big investor. And obviously the crash happened, and then the investment didn't go through, and I was extremely upset. So this is, obviously I didn't know what was waiting for me on the other side, which was much, much more exciting than what I was about to do. And then the other pivotal moment is when I got a call from a dear friend of mine. Her name's Dina Ghabbour, and they used to be the tuk-tuk distributors.
Yeah.
And she told me, listen, Mounir, we want to partner with you, and we want to commit what was then about $5 million to that business, and we think you can grow it very fast with your experience and with what you know. And we did the deal, and we launched in 2010, and that opened a huge opportunity. The microfinance law in 2014 was a pivotal moment. My trip to Indonesia in 2017 was an eye-opening experience. If it wasn't for David Halpert, who called me and told me, listen, Mounir, come meet the CEO of Gojek. I'm an early investor there. It's $1 billion company. You're a $100 million company. And I said, oh my God, what am I doing? Let's another big pivot. And they just keep on coming.
Yeah. What's the next one?
So I can't tell you when the next pivotal moment is, because it's a moment and you don't know it, and it just happens. However, what's happening these days in the company is groundbreaking, and what's happening in Egypt with the amount of services, the quality of the services, and the growth we're seeing in Egypt is really exciting. Yeah. And I think 2025 will be a pivotal year in the journey of the company, because today we've got presence in 4 countries, 2 big ones, 2 less developed ones. So we're already present in the UAE, and we already have revenues generated there and users. But I think during 2025, we will expand even into more geographies and cement our offering in many of these geographies. So I think this will be, when we look back in our history, if we're standing in 2035 and we're looking at our history, late 2024 and 2025 will be pivotal years.
And we look forward to hearing those news. Mounir, thank you so much for joining us today on Access Tomorrow. It's been so enlightening to hear your story, the story of Halan, how it developed, and the amazing impact you're doing in the everyday life of so many communities across Egypt and in the entire region. Thank you so much, Mounir.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us and for continuing to watch and listen to Access Tomorrow, brought to you by Visa.